And welcome. This is Peter Winick. I am the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. And you're joining us on our podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is David Lorenzo. David's an author, a speaker, and a business strategy consultant. I like his concise bio. It says he does three things. He works with business leaders to develop sales strategy and drive revenue growth. He develops and delivers speeches and training programs that increase sales. He coaches entrepreneurs, sales executives, and professionals on relationship-based sales strategy. Very clear, very concise. So now we know what you do. Welcome aboard, David.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And it's I've got a copy of your new book. Nobody ever says your old book, right? Your new book here, The 60-Second Sale.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So congratulations on that. So let's just dive in. You and I have been chatting in preparation for today. And one of the things that you and I are very much aligned about is how to optimize your business from a speaking perspective to drive the growth and the revenue and the sales. So speaking is great. Nobody feels bad for people that make $10,000 or $50,000 or whatever for an hour, and your day's work ends in a standing ovation. There are way worse ways to make a living, right? But most people miss the forest for the trees. Tell me your perspective on that and what you're doing that's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I love speakers. I work with people who speak professionally all day long. The one question I have to ask people who are constantly chasing the next speaking gig and who turn down a $5,000 gig because they're waiting for a $10,000 gig. The one question I have to ask them is, what the hell are you doing? I mean, seriously, you have to realize, and I'm going to throw a bucket of cold water on 80% of your audience right now. And I really hope that they tune into the next podcast when somebody who's going to be full of sunshine, light, and cookies shares with them the information they want to hear. Because here today, I'm going to share with you the information you need to hear. Speaking is not a business. It's not a business. Speaking is an opportunity for you to get in front of your ideal audience and demonstrate the value you can provide so that you have an opportunity to provide that value later on for a multiple of what you would get for a speech. Nobody's making any life changes, even if you're the greatest speaker in the world. Nobody's making any life changes because they saw you keynote at the American Association of International Tow Truck Drivers or whatever.
So let me just give you an exception to that. Unless your name's Obama or Clinton or something like that, those are people that can speak professionally and there's no other business side to it. But for most of our audience, I'd say all of our audience, speaking should be the beginning of a relationship, not the relationship, right? You can't just wake up one day and decide, okay, I get that theoretically, what am I going to do? You have to do an analysis and assessment of your product and solution offering, the different price points that you're hitting, who you're speaking in front of, right? So if all you do is speak, clearly the speaking fee has to be the critical KPI because there's no other measurement, right? So therefore, it's about maximizing your fee on stage, which is all fine and dandy. Nobody's against that. But the reality is if you have this suite of opportunities, offerings, and solutions, the measurement becomes what are you generating from that speaking engagement? And the speaking fee, quite frankly, should be 5, 10, 15, maybe 20% of what that is over time if you do it well. Would you concur, David?
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. A couple of things that I speak to people about when they tell me that they either are professional speakers or they want to be professional speakers. The first thing I share with them is something that was shared with me. God, it's got to be 14 years ago by my mentor, Alan Weiss. I've known Alan. I've worked with Alan for years, and he says that true wealth is discretionary time. And you know what, Peter, I have to tell you, nothing rings truer to me, but I had to literally be hit over the head in order to realize that. And I'll share a story with you that I think will resonate with some of your listeners and may actually get some folks to open their eyes and spend the next 15 minutes with us understanding how they can leverage their speaking business into really, truly becoming a business. I was the managing shareholder of the Gallup organization in Manhattan, and I had a huge client, a pharmaceutical company as a client, and we had worked for 3 years to get them on board. We were doing a study for them on a specific drug and how much revenue they could keep once that drug came off of patent protection. is mid-December, and I'm engaged to be married to the love of my life, and I had an appointment to go to lunch with her, and the phone in my office rings, and my assistant comes
Was
running
that an
in.
appointment or a date, David? I don't want to get you in trouble later.
Well, I mean, it was kind of you know what, I gotta be honest, we were going to talk about the plans for the wedding, so I probably had it written down as something that it was not in pencil, it was in pen, Peter. Okay, so it was an appointment. The phone in my office rings. It's my assistant. She comes running in and she says, "It's Jeff. He wants to talk to you." It's the CEO of this Fortune 100 company. I answer the phone call, and it's his assistant. It's the CEO's assistant. And turns out Jeff is going to be out of town in China during the period of time in January when we're due to present results. Can I stop by? All right. This is a 1-year study, $10 million they invested in this study. Can I stop by and give him top line of what I'm going to share with the board?
Kind of a rhetorical question from his perspective.
Well, I said, yeah, no problem. I mean, I had raw data at that point, and we had some conclusions. We had no report. I said, sure. Here's what I'll do. I'll get the team together. We'll spend a couple days going over it, and I'll come by on Friday. No, you don't understand. Jeff wants you here this afternoon. How soon can you get here? So he's my best client. So I said, all right, I'll come over this afternoon. I threw some stuff in a folder. I put on the tie that I had hanging around the back of my office door, ran downstairs into 6th Avenue with my coat on, called my wife, my future wife, told her, listen, we're going to make the wedding plan some other time. I got to go over to the pharmaceutical company. I get to the corner of 6th Avenue and 43rd Street. There were probably 27 other people in the crosswalk, and they were able to successfully avoid the taxi that struck me.
Ouch.
I ended up flying some 23 feet, 8 inches. I know exactly because that's what the police report said. But the next thing I remember is being wheeled down the hall of St. Vincent's Hospital on a gurney with no feeling from my armpits down. I looked up, Peter, I got to tell you, I looked up at the ceiling tiles and I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, I wasn't really thinking. I did what anybody does in that situation. I kind of made a deal. I believe in God. I made a deal with God at the time. And I said, look, if you get me out of this, I'm going to make some changes. And the changes I'm going to make, the first one is that I'm never going to let a situation dictate my behavior. I'm going to focus on being able to do what I want to do and really having the courage to make decisions that are good for me versus decisions that I feel like I have to make. Okay. Now, 2 takeaways from that, Peter. The first to me is really important. I have 2 beautiful children, and it's really important to you that you know and that everyone in your audience knows that everything on my body works. My entire body is fully functional now. So by the grace of God, I recovered. Okay. The second important takeaway is that Alan Weiss is right. True wealth is discretionary time. And the only way you have control of your time is to have an actual business with a plan and a system for generating revenue. Speaking has to fit into that system. It can't be the only way. It can't be the major way you generate revenue because then you're at the mercy of somebody else.
Well, and it's not sustainable. And in the history of speaking business, the best speakers that have ever been out there doing 200 gigs a year for $1 zillion, no one has ever had an exit. No one has ever sold a speaking business, right? Because we can't say the role of, whoever, Jim Collins today will be played by, Melvin the accountant. It doesn't work like that. So let's go nuts and bolts now, Dave. So let's start with, let's assume I'm a speaker, right? And let's assume I speak professionally, and let's assume I'm making a decent living at it. But I hear you. I don't want to get hit by a cab, right? Nobody wants that. But I want to, and again, I think it's not binary. It's not speaking, not speaking. It's a system and a process and a holistic perspective. So what are the things that you need to do from a solution, offering, product, price point? Give me a sense of your take on that, because I have a point of view on this, but I want to hear sort of how you sort of take inventory and start to make decisions on what to develop, the costs, the price points, all that sort of fun stuff.
All right. The first thing you have to have is clarity of purpose. Okay. So your purpose in speaking is to attract clients. Your purpose in speaking is not to attract dollars. The dollars follow the value you provide. So you have to work backwards. What people in the speaking business, quote unquote, think of as the back end, the consulting or the coaching or the long-term recurring revenue product sales. Okay. I'm not talking about one-off product sales. I'm talking about, sustained
enterprise license subscription, big meaty.
Yes, right, exactly. Right. That's the real business here. So you have to work backwards. You have to determine who your ideal client is, and then you have to determine how you can get in front of them. And the way you do that is you find your ideal client and you ask them, what do you read? Where do you go? Where do people like you hang out? And then you go there and you speak in front of those people and you do it whether they pay you or not.
So let me flip that, because the standard protocol or operating system for a speaker is I've got a fee. Business comes through agents or through my own, direct inbound leads, or referrals, or sort of that sort of thing. And the metric is, will you pay my fee? So occasionally, maybe I won't speak in front of a group if I, have disagree with their values or their beliefs, or I don't want to, do work for a company that sells cigarette, whatever. But in spite of that, most, they don't care if it's the Left-Handed Plumbers Association of Cleveland. If your fee is $20K and they've got $20K and they're bringing you in, check, done. Okay. And that leads to the next engagement, right? Which looks exactly like the first engagement. What you're saying is, if you know that you bring value to pharmaceutical sales executives, as an example, it doesn't take that much effort to figure out where they are, where they're hanging out, online, offline, how to get in front of them. The bureaus aren't aligned with your business model at this point, because the bureaus, and they're good people, right? Their objective is to get you on a stage and to take their fee as a percentage of whatever you make on the stage, rinse, lather, repeat. So the whole back end ongoing stuff, enterprise solutions, they don't play in that game. So you are now out of alignment with your bureau agents, which leads me to believe more often than not, you're going to have to find business on your own. Would you concur?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is business that comes from speakers bureaus, that's gravy, okay? And if anybody's willing to pay the fee that's listed for me at Worldwide Speakers Group, I go. Okay, I don't care who it is, because that's a great fee, and I'm going to go there. I'm going to deliver a fantastic talk. I'm going to deliver a talk that makes the meeting planner a hero, that makes them thrilled, that makes their boss thrilled, and I'm going to earn every penny of the $20,000 they pay me. And that's, I'm happy to do that. But I am equally as happy when I get on the phone with somebody, and I'll give you the perfect example. In the 60-second sale, in my book, I tell the story of a speaking engagement I took for an entire weekend, and that weekend included 2 90-minute talks and a workshop, and it included a full day, a day of one-on-one coaching, and my fee was $3,000.
For the non-speakers out there, that sounds like 2 or 3 days of work. For the speakers out there, this is asking someone to, pull 5 all-nighters, to do, 2 breakouts and a keynote and be there for 3 days is like, the marathon of speaking.
Right. I facilitated the meeting. Yeah. I facilitated the whole meeting. I did a full day of coaching. I went to dinner with the group. I had every meal with the group afterwards. Here's the thing, okay? It was 30 lawyers in a room, and my target audience has always included lawyers because I teach relationship-based business development. So this really resonates with lawyers. So I go and I do this weekend for $3,000, okay? I came home on Monday morning after spending the weekend with this group. I came home not exhausted, exhilarated, because I had closed close to $300,000 worth of business in that 3 days. I closed $280,000 in 3 days.
So let me do the compare and contrast, and I want to get back to the product question. So typically, what a $20,000 speaker would do would say, oh, geez, you're asking me for all this extra stuff and you want me to do a dinner. It's double my speaking fee. It's $40,000. And a speaker would be delighted to say, oh my God, I got to go to a weekend, one weekend, and I could do 2 speeches and I don't have to do double travel, and it's 40 grand, and that's awesome. You're at 5, 6, whatever, 250s or 6 times that by bringing your fee down to 10% or whatever of what your basic fee is. Much smarter model, right? So let me go back to the question I asked a couple minutes ago. What the heck are you selling them? Walk me through the product. How do I, as the ideal client, let's say I'm a law firm, a lawyer, whatever, how do I give you money? What am I paying for other than the obvious speaking, coaching, but the non-Dave delivered stuff, the stuff that is not based on you and I being
Okay, so you're an audience of independent sales professionals, okay? And you could be in any business. You could be in insurance, okay? You could own insurance agencies. So you're 300 insurance agency owners, and you're there, and I deliver a talk. But the key thing you want to know from me, and I know this because not only have I interviewed the event planner ahead of time, but I've also interviewed people who are going to be in the audience, and I get those people from the event planner. And also, by the way, I call my own insurance agent and I ask her if she belongs to the association. And if she does or if she doesn't, I find out why and what value she's looking for from them. So I deliver this speech, and in the speech, I address the key issue that is driving them absolutely nuts. Not that's keeping them awake at night, okay? I address the key issue that's keeping them from achieving the goals they want the most. And the reason that I know.
Okay, so the contrast there, let me just pause you for a second, Dave. So the contrast there, I'm trying to drive the point of what speakers do and what they can do differently, is typically a great speaker will have their canned speech. They might get some cursory information around the industry or how it works. Is it a growth company, et cetera? I'm not saying they don't do their homework, but they're typically not drilling down to the level of what is the thing that's driving them crazy and then shaping everything around that to that, putting the audience member sort of at the highest level of really resonating with them.
Well, and you have to go even beyond that because it's not good enough. Nobody changes their life based on a speech, okay? So it's not good enough just for me to deliver that superficially in a speech. What I do in the speech is I convince them that it's time to look into making this change further. Now, notice what I said there, Peter. I didn't say I convinced them that it's time to change, okay? Because they've been doing this. They've been successful doing this for their entire careers. So anybody who gets on a stage and thinks they're going to change someone's life is either, I mean, the nicest way to put it is that they're out of their freaking mind. You're not going to change somebody's life from the stage. So what I do is I convince them it's time to look at making a change, and then I offer what's called a honeypot, okay? I don't give a speech anywhere for pay, for my maximum fee, or to the local Rotary Club without making an offer to give something away. And if
so give me an example of that. What would you give? So we talked about the insurance agent.
So the insurance people, it could be something as simple as a 3-day video course that is titled 7 Mistakes Successful Insurance Executives Make That Cost Them Millions of Dollars. If that's the thing that they're most concerned about.
Okay. So, but it's targeted, relevant, focused, of value to them.
It is exactly a continuation of the one thing they need to hear from me in the speech. So if I get booked to give a speech to deliver value on a set topic, and the meeting planner, the event planner, the CEO tells me this is exactly this is exactly what they need to hear, and then I call 3 people who are going to be in the audience and they tell me, yeah, that's exactly what we need to hear, and then I get independent confirmation that that's exactly what they need to hear, I then go build that 3 video course, which for me is super easy to do around what they need to hear. I then back into constructing the speech to convince them that they need to get this 3-day course, which is free. It's absolutely free, simply for giving me their contact information. Just give me your business card, pass it to the center aisle. I'll come down the center aisle, pick up the business cards, and I'll enroll you in this 3-day course. And if you never want to hear from me again, you never have to hear from me again. And then, Peter, what happens?
Okay, but what are we selling? So let's go back to the product piece. So that's a teaser. You're providing me with free value that gets me deeper into sort of Dave world, right? So you're creating a sense of, I want to say, addiction, dependency, but you're showing off by giving away some thought leadership and some solid content.
You just asked the money question, Peter. What are we selling? We're selling a relationship with Dave Lorenzo. I'm selling everyone in the audience on a relationship with me. And what I've demonstrated is called having an external orientation. Okay. Now, I could get up there and I could pitch them on my book, right? My book is $25 on Amazon. I could say, for $25, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you this. And all you got to do is spend the same $25 that you would spend on the book. And that's one model. That's one way to do it. And I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but you will develop so much more goodwill with your event planners, Okay. And you'll never get turned down for a gig if you follow the model that I just demonstrated with the honeypot. And what happens is, instead of closing two people who grab you at the cocktail hour, or two people who see you on the way to the bathroom and say, I'd like to hear more from you, instead of closing those two people on follow-on business, which is worth 10, 20, 30 times more than a speaking engagement would be worth, you'll close half of those people over the next 7, 8, 9 years. Okay. This is what relationship sales is all about. That's what you have to think about. You have to think about this as a collection of relationships and not as a one-night stand.
And you don't develop a relationship by asking. You develop a relationship by giving and being generous, not taking.
By having an external orientation. You deliver value on that stage. You make an offer to deliver more value. You'll get contact information from 80% of the room. You enter those people into, we don't have enough time to talk about it here, but you enter those people into the system. I outline the system in the book, and then those people will become clients. I'm not saying you won't get clients immediately. You will. It happens all the time. But you'll get 10 times more clients after the fact. And those are the people, even if you're doing this now, those are the people that you're missing out on. Those are the people who forget about you the minute you walk off stage and the next speaker walks on.
Well, I think the other point that you touched on there is a longer term play, right? So it doesn't mean that, all those people are going to throw money at you within 2 days of the speech, right? Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. Who cares? Right? You're not going anywhere. It's an ongoing payment of dividends for work well done over a period of time. So I'm sure you're tracking now, when work comes in and where it came from. You can say, oh, that was that event I did in Phoenix in, 2014. So you know what the profile of a successful event is for you. Give me a sense of, though, so they see you speak, you enroll them in, as an example, a 3-day program that's sort of custom tailored for them. Then what are they buying? Where do dollars change hands?
Then what happens then is you make an offer that is right in their wheelhouse. And that is the essence of the 60-second sale. So they've seen you speak on stage. You've delivered the course to them virtually, right? Over 3 days. It could be a course, it could be an ebook, it can be whatever you have to offer. Now they have a perception of a relationship with you. Then you make an offer to them of something that they can enroll in. Now, you don't make an offer to them to license your content for $1 million. You make an offer to them that is in line with their psychographic and demographic ability, right? So if I'm working with consultants whose average consulting engagement is $1 million plus, I can make an offer where they can come and spend a day with me for $3,500. And if there's 300 people in the audience, 2 people will take me up on that. Okay. If I'm working with insurance executives, I can make an offer to come to my insurance executive 1-day summit where they'll learn the 25 specific ways to close more insurance deals in a week than they've closed in a year. And that could cost $500. And I'll get 2 dozen or 3 dozen people to sign up for that as a result. So your offer, again, has to be tailored to the people in your audience. All this is very specific. Here's the key. I want to make sure we don't miss this, okay? The essence of the 60-second sale is making the right offer to the right person at the right time in a way that helps them see the value, right? So the difference between the person who signs up with you immediately after the speech, the person who signs up with you immediately after taking that free e-course, and the person that signs up with you after you follow up with them for 2 or 3 years is they all have different needs. And we're making different offers of value across that period of time. And then when the value matches the need, that's when they sign up. If you could go to each person in that audience and spend 15 minutes with them using a diagnostic tool that I give to folks in the book, you could sell everyone in that audience if you could go to each one of them, but you can't. All right. And we need to employ leverage. That's the key to having a good business without having 1 million people work for you. Right. We need to employ leverage. And that's what speaking gives you. So the 60-second sale is hitting that person with that value right when they need it the most. And you don't know that until you continually offer value to them over time. And as long as you do it in a way that shows that you're really interested in helping them improve their future, nobody's ever going to be offended.
And the way I frame that is a touch differently, but I think thematically the same, is as the content provider, as the author, the speaker, the consultant, whatever, you in essence always have the supply. You've always got the guts, the stuff, right? And it's rare that you're out of supply. You have to intersect it when they have the demand. So even though they saw you and they fell in love with you, maybe that quarter's already planned out for them, or the budget for the year is spent, or they're not enough paying. But next year it is, or 6 months later it is. And you have to have systems and processes in place to continually stay connected with them, because even though you've got the supply, without the demand, it ain't going to happen, right? And then the other piece that you mentioned that I love is the value. So you can basically be offering similar derivatives of your content to very different groups at very, very different price points. So the consultant selling $1 million deals, their ROI, they're doing the math going, geez, if this just helped me just a little bit, close one more engagement next year, of course this is worth it, versus the insurance salesman who's in a higher volume business and probably doesn't have the cash flow that $1 million consultant has. So great stuff.
Well, and Peter, that's an excellent point, and this is something that we've already touched on so many different things that are valuable in our time together today. That what you just said there is a nugget that if you're listening to this and you're driving in your car, you need to pull over now and write this down. One of the key things that you should take away from our time together today is the indicator of whether you should be in front of a group or not is their average transaction size. Okay. I will drop whatever I'm doing and crawl over broken glass to get in front of a group of cosmetic surgeons, okay? Because their average transaction size is phenomenal.
Yep.
And I can deliver value to them, and they will place a dollar amount on that value that if I only sign up one will make me very happy that I went there, okay? If you contrast that with people who own grocery franchises, right? Like a little quick stop, like a 7-Eleven or a quick stop. Those people they have to sell 1,000 super big gulps just to spend an hour on the phone with me. So that's not a good audience for me, but the cosmetic surgeons are a good audience for me because their average transaction size is so much greater. And I discovered that, we talked about that weekend I spent with those lawyers. The reason I agreed to do that is because those were big time complex commercial litigation attorneys. They handle bet the company cases.
Yep.
And all I needed to do in my work with them was help them get one more case, and that would keep their entire law firm fed for a year and a half. If I could do that, I'd be a hero. If I helped them, if I put some processes in place that helped them get a case 5 years from now, the money they invested in me was well worth it. The secret of the average transaction size is one that few people get, but it's the key to making money in this business as a consultant or as a coach or whatever it is you do.
And the last comment I'll make to that is oftentimes I see authors and thought leaders and speakers almost not having the courage in their own content to go big stakes. Big stakes equal big rewards. So the same content that you would put out in front of those quick check folks, right, is in essence the same DNA, the same thinking, the same processes, methodologies that you're putting out into the attorneys. But, for them to be, for you to be able to make a claim that you're going to sell 1,000 more big gulps, that's pretty risky. Right? Versus the attorneys intuitively know that within a year or 2 or 3 of working with you, they land one big case, game changer.
Well, they're not gonna buy into it. I mean, think about one of the groups I love to get in front of is people who sell software as a service, right? Because they sell 2 or 3 more, or people who sell private jets. I love to be in front of people who sell private jets to fleet managers, right? 2 private jets a year, and I've changed that person's lifestyle.
Exactly.
And I can help you sell 2 private jets a year, just like I can help the guy at 7-Eleven sell 2 super big gulps. But the problem is the guy in 7-Eleven who sells two super big gulps doesn't even get to look up from the register. He's got to work 14 hours because he can't afford the labor to run the place. The guy who sells private jets we're building relationships, we're developing relationships over time, just like anybody else. But the stakes are so much they're so much greater that when he invests his time, he needs to feel like he's going to get that return on investment. And all I have to do is show him that I can give him that return on investment once, and then I've got him forever. And that's the beauty of being in the consulting business or being in the coaching business and delivering value. People don't go away. People don't run away from things that provide them with enormous value. So take away from this that your speech is important, but it's a gateway. It's an opportunity for you to develop some new relationships, which will pay you for the rest of your career.
Thank you so much, David. There's so much that you shared today. You and I think alike in many ways in terms of the processes and the systems and the creation of value. And again, if you were driving in your car, you might want to pull over and rewind a couple of pieces here, but this was jam-packed. Pick up a copy of the 60-second sale. I'm sure it's on Amazon and all the usual sources. And thanks so much.
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon right now. And the three things we talked about, the three key things, they're right up in the front. I outlined for you the actionable items right in the front of the book. You don't have to read the whole book to figure out where those actionable items are. You can just go right to the front part of the book. It's in there. Turn right to that chapter, and it's the best $25 you've ever spent. And by the time you hear this, it'll be discounted because it'll be on the shelves everywhere.
Well, thanks again, David. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Peter, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.